it's Tandy with the Sustainable Alaska podcast, and we got a couple different things going on. You can see I'm recording from my car because that's just how it worked out with the schedule, and then also you'll notice my co-host again for the second week in a row looks a little different. Kelly has been traveling. She actually was in South Central, and she spent some time on the farm, which we'll talk about next week when we record. But for now, we're talking with Mary Lee from Heirlooms Evermore today, and this could not be a more timely chat with her. Mary Lee is actually from Idaho, and so we're gonna. This isn't a super Alaska specific podcast, but her message and her story is so good that we just it just I knew that you all would benefit from this in a big way. So pardon my background, and just let's just welcome you. We are so glad to have you. I just cannot wait for you. Well, first of all, sorry, I'm feeling a little bit scared. Sitting in my car makes things a little different. So first of all, Heirlooms Evermore is a seed company that and it's all heirloom seeds. So and she had been explaining to me kind of the process, and it's fascinating. So we're going to talk a little bit about that for sure. But we're also just going to talk about homesteading in general, and kind of some best practices for living a successful and healthy and happy life in this lifestyle, because we can kind of tend to get a little in over our heads. So I'm just so glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm just really excited for our chat today.
Yeah, not a problem. Me too.
Yeah, so let's just start with an introduction. Tell us about you, who you are. Tell us about your company. Tell us all the things.
Okay. So I am a stay-at-home mom. I've got two kids, and my husband and I, we live on our 10 acres. We're completely off grid. And we moved from Tri-Cities, Washington, up here 6 years ago, started with the raw land and built our place. And I ended up meeting Tom and Sarah Wiley, who owned Heirlooms Evermore. They were our neighbors across the street. And I actually started with the company as just a person that would count the seeds to make sure that our measurements were right. And then I went from doing that to packaging the seeds. And at one point, I was doing 10,000 seed packets a week by myself. And just slowly started doing more and more with the company. And then Tom and Sarah decided they were moving to Missouri. And so they asked me to take over like distributing our seeds to our packers, which right now we've just got Shauna. She's a dear friend of ours and neighbor. And so I started, printing off the labels, getting her supplies for packaging. I'd still package, and I would get everything together for Azure Standard and send that off to them. And then not last Christmas, but the Christmas before, they got a hold of me and they said that they were moving to Portugal and wanted to know if I wanted to buy the company. And of course, I jumped at the chance because it's become kind of a passion of mine. And so through this whole process, I've finally went ahead and paid for the company completely. So it's all mine and I get to put my own little stamp on it. But I have really learned a lot of things about, distributing seeds and stuff that I never knew. Like every year we have to have our seeds tested to make sure that the germination rate hits the federal level. And so I'm actually here in September, October, getting ready to start doing that and getting everything sent out to the seed lab to make sure that we can get the best germ rate for our customers. Because if they're too low, I don't like to sell them. Like if they're too close to that federal level, especially like our herbs, 55% is like the lowest that I like to go, even though you can do down to 50. But I'm about making sure that my customers are getting the best product that we can go ahead and provide for them, because it's feeding their families, and through this whole thing, I've gotten to where I felt like I'm kind of closer to my grandpa, who he grew a huge garden. And even though he was legally blind, he was still gardening, and he was in his 90s. he would feel the difference between the weeds and the plants, and he just knew what was what. And so, now I wish I could pick up the phone and just give him a holler and ask him all the questions, but I can't. But I can go ahead and teach my kids what he taught me and learn still, and so yeah, it's all of our seeds. They're 100% heirloom, open pollinated, non-GMO. We do some organic. It just depends on the cost. I like to keep our costs down for us as well as the customer. And so, even though I do have some that are organic, if I can't get them organic, I don't change the price. So whether it's organic or not, the price stays the same. That just makes it easier for me. And then it also makes it nicer for the customer, because then they're not, say they buy one of our seeds that's not organic, and then the next time they go to buy it and we only offer the organic, they don't see the price jump. And so our prices have not changed in, I want to say, 3 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I try to keep the customer in mind, because, like I said, I know that these people that are buying our seeds, it's going to feed their families. And so it's become a family affair. My husband, he helps put the orders together. I call him my head of shipping and receiving. And then our son and our daughter, they like to help me pull the orders off the shelves and get stuff together for sending out. And it's become kind of fun to get to see where, all the orders are going to. We have people that order up there in Alaska, and just all over. And it's neat to see the different places that our seeds are going. And then, seeing our customers posting pictures of the vegetables and stuff that they're growing. It's neat. It's neat to get to see. And the kids, this gives them something later on that they can carry on if they want. But the ultimate goal is for my husband to be able to retire from driving mixer. He's been doing that for 18 years now. And then he can be home working on the homestead, doing all the projects he needs and wants to do. And then we can just have heirlooms support us. So, and then he's also available to spend more time with the kids and help with homeschooling and all the other things that come with living off grid, as well as on a homestead.
I love that. What a cool story. And how, like, so I want to back up for just a second. Did you ever, before you moved to Idaho, did you have experience with saving seeds and with like learning about seeds? Were you a gardener, or was this kind of a sudden, whoa, this is really cool, and then it went from there?
So I had one garden in the Tri-Cities, and it's sandy soil. So, and they've got a long growing season, so anything would grow. And I had planned eventually to do just a small garden when we moved up here, once I learned the climate and all that and found what would grow up here. But as far as like being into the seeds and all that, it kind of, well, God landed it in my lap.
Mm.
When we were looking for property, he kept giving me this same dream over and over. And it was, we would walk up and I would see the property and I knew that it was the property. Well, when we started looking for property, we looked at 3 others before this one, and we walked up and I turned towards the mountains, and boom, that was my dream.
Mm.
And I told my husband, I was like, honey, this is it. This is the property that I've been seeing in my dream that God keeps giving me over and over and over. And because of that dream, that's where we ended up here. And then God introduced us with Tom and Sarah. And it was just like a snowball effect. I mean, it just started. I didn't plan on, having a garden seed company or working for a garden seed company. I was just going to be, stay at home, take care of the kids, and, all that I had done throughout the years. And God had other plans.
Isn't that fun though? And it's so fun when you can look back and see his hand on it, even though
Mhm.
sometimes when you're in the middle of it, you're like, I just am not so sure. And it sounds like you were pretty sure. It was pretty clear, but still sometimes there's just that human side of us that says, I don't know. And then pretty soon we have hindsight that shows that it was perfectly planned out all along. I love that.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
I
very good.
definitely can look back through the whole process and see how God, just lined everything up.
So cool.
And it's like I've always said, when it's with God's plan, get ready because he's going to send you on a roller coaster ride and you're just along for that ride.
Yep.
And there's many times where we were having struggles, because living off grid in itself is a struggle, as well as building and everything. So there was a lot of times that we would feel discouraged or we'd hit a roadblock. And so I started keeping a journal, and anytime that I would feel discouraged or like we're not going to get through this, I would look back through that journal and be like, okay, this happened and this happened, just read through my entries. And at the end of it, I would close it and I'd go, okay, Lord, thank you for giving me the mindset to write all this down, because if we got through that, we can get through this. This is not as
Yeah.
big as that was, and so I've encouraged a lot of people that have, kind of followed a little bit of our journey, that it's always a good thing to do, especially when you're, doing something like we did, just to keep a journal. So then
Yeah.
you can reflect and look back. And then also something that your kids later on in life can read over and, remember, oh, yeah, I remember that first year we had snow in September while we were building the house.
Yep.
And so, yeah, having that as a tool has really helped.
And you're leaving, excuse me, you're leaving a legacy for your kids too. They're going to have evidence of your story.
Hmm.
And I think so many of our stories are lost. I often wonder, so is it just going to be like, are my kids just going to scroll through my Facebook to have the memories that,
Hmm.
or, I think writing that stuff down is really important. So let's talk about the world of an heirloom seed company. Like, because this process just fascinates me. You had mentioned, for a second, you talked about the fact that you have to have all of your germination tested. Who knew?
Hmm.
Um, Although doesn't it usually say on a seed packet the germination, something about the germination rate or something? I can't remember. I should have looked, but
Yeah.
um,
So on the back, it says the germination rate and then what year it's packed for.
mm,
So that tells the customer which year we can legally sell it for. So right now, I actually have stuff that is good for 2026. That just means that it was tested in 2025. So it's
okay,
always like a year behind. And so like one thing that I did not even know about the germ rates and all that until we started doing this, because Tom and Sarah, they would just throw the old seeds away. They never would have them tested. Well, then we found out that we could. And so that was a game changer. But through this whole process, we found out that sometimes seeds don't just go down in germination rate. Sometimes they go up, which is
mm,
just crazy because you would think, that it would every year just go down a little bit. But there was one, I think it went up by like 10% one year. And I even had them retest it because I was like, wait, what? How is that possible? And no, it was true that it had actually went up. And it also helps too on how you store your seeds. So when you store them, you want to have them in a cool, dark place. A lot of people do it. They put them in the freezer.
mm,
So seeds never expire. Their germination rate just changes. So you could have seeds from like your great grandmother, as long as they were stored properly, um, they should still grow. As to how many will grow, you kind of have to play around with that. And so I tell people, if you have old seeds and you want to kind of see an idea of the germination rate that they would have, is you take a paper towel, you mist it, you put your seeds on it, and then put it in a Ziploc baggie, tape it to a window that gets lots of light, and then just every day take a look at it. And once they start growing, you'll see, say you do 10 seeds And if 5 of them grow, you've got a 50% germination rate. And so you just plant a little bit extra. Um, and sometimes you'd be surprised. It could be that, oh, I'm going to plant a little extra, and you actually get more of a crop than what you expected,
Yeah.
And so it's just the kids and I, we like to do things like that. We'll do an experiment to see, okay, here's some seeds that Emma, picked up off the floor of my office here. Let's see how well they grow since they've been, walked on and there's dirt on them, and all the things. And so they get to have a little bit of science experiment behind it as well. But when we're choosing our seeds, we use suppliers that Farah, the original owner that started the company, would get her seeds from. And what she did is she started this company to honor her grandmother. And she took years of seeing what would grow well in this northern climate because she was from Spokane, and we all up here have a very short growing season like you guys do. And so she just painstakingly went through and found what grew well and came up with the 50 varieties that we currently have. And it ended up being that her daughters, she wanted them to take it over. And so she was the original supplier for Azure Standard. And eventually she started to let it die out because the girls didn't want to take it over. And that's when Tom and Sarah ended up with it, is she gave it to them because they were good friends. And so we still use those same suppliers that she chose. And Shauna and I, when we're packing, we always pay attention to the seeds. So if there's ones that are deformed or they're like cut in half, we try to weed those out and not put those in our packets because it is quality control and we want the best for our customers.
Well, that makes sense. You're hitting on something that is super rare. And I'm gonna brag on my husband for a second too, because it's a similar thing. Um, there are production companies, right? Whether it's a farm or seed companies or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that. They're putting out, they're feeding the world too, and they're putting out a lot of product. But it's the small businesses that are taking the time and noticing every little idiosyncrasy. And um, so I enjoy my conversations with Gene, especially this time of year, because he spent his summer out in the orchard, and I mean I'm out there too, but nothing like he is. And he'll say something like, "Do you remember that tree that had that little knob starting to grow off of it? And I told you I wasn't sure what that was." And I'll be like, no, but okay, we have in our orchard we have, I don't know, a couple thousand plants. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not remembering one specific one with a little knob growing out of it, but he does.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something so much bigger than us and so incredible when the person who is kind of in charge is paying attention to those small details.
Mm-hmm.
He walks the orchard multiple times a day, and he I could say, actually, I've challenged our customers with this a couple times. I'll be like, you should just ask. They'll say, what the is the variety on this one, and I'll say, man, I don't remember, but it's the fifth row on this end, and you're asking about the third plant up, and I don't remember which one it is, but if you tell Gene it's the fifth row, the third plant up, he'll tell you what it is, and he
Mm-hmm.
can. And that's
Yeah.
impressive for, I mean, for one thing, a guy with a brain injury, but it's because it's so ingrained in what he does. It's just, it's always on the front of his memory. And but also just that he knows every piece and part that well. And so when you say, when you're sorting through the seeds, that you're seeing all the little anomalies, all the little parts, partial seeds or broken seeds, or like you said, ones that are cut in half, or ones that just aren't quite right. That's, they're not just getting sent through some sort of a cylinder that just dumps seeds in packets. You're
Mm-hmm.
you're actually seeing every seed that leaves your place, and that's a quality control that's unmatched in this era where everything is AI and run by machines. And so
Yeah.
I think that's really special.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people ask me, well, why don't you use packaging machines? And it's like, because we want to be hands-on.
Hmm.
We want to make sure that, like you said, the quality control is there. And in each of our packets, we try to make sure that there's 5 to 10 extra seeds so that the customer's getting what they paid for and a little bit extra, just because we want to make sure that they're getting the best.
Yeah.
And, it's paying attention to the little details that help set us apart. And like when I get the seeds from our suppliers, I make sure to bring them into the office. There is no windows in this office, and it's kept cool because, we like to store them in a cool, dark place. And then like back here, these black totes have the bulk seeds in them. So then no sunlight can get to them. And, Shauna, when she's packaging, she also looks at the labels. So sometimes our printer will do like splotches, and she is so OCD about it that if there's even a little bit of a smudge, she's like, I can't use it. I can't rightfully use it. Or she'll accidentally put a label on a little crooked. And I keep telling her, it's okay if it's a little crooked. It just shows that it's hand packed and it's not just, printed on or whatever.
Right. I
And
love it.
so, yeah, so I like to just make sure that we've always got our hands on the seeds, when we're packaging them. And we have different measurements that we use for the different seeds. And periodically, Shauna will look, because seeds vary in size.
Hmm.
So one lot number could have, so like beets, that's a big one. Um, their seeds vary. Sometimes they're smaller than, other times. And so that's one that we constantly, if it's a new lot number, we will recount the seeds to make sure that the measurement's correct. Or if Shauna's doing it and she's like, that just doesn't look like, say, 50 seeds, she'll recount it. And if it's wrong, she shoots me a message, hey, I'm doing this seed. We need to change the measurement to this. And she has a cheat sheet, just like I do here. And it says, like blue lake bush bean, we'll just say 1 tablespoon or 1 heaping tablespoon. And so if she sees that something needs to be changed, I grab my sheet and I cross it off and I put it on there. So then that way we're both getting the same measurements. And she's really, really good at making sure that the measurement is right, because both of us take pride in the company and our quality, because there is so many big companies that are taking everything over that the smaller companies, they're starting to die out,
Yeah.
and it is hard to find a smaller company that, really cares about the quality and the customer.
Yeah, very much so. But it also makes us stand out, I think, too,
Yeah.
which I think is really good. So tell me the process. Let's walk through the process of what is even involved in um, taking an heirloom seed from, say, taking it from the plant to putting it in the mail. Like,
Okay.
so what is the process that you take?
So I get on with our distributors and I let them know what I need and how much I need, and then they send it to me. And then if I need to go ahead and pack, we'll just say I'm out of golden bantam corn. I will go ahead and I will put the bag of corn in one of these black totes. I'll do the envelopes for the amount that I need. I'll put them in there. And then I have a file that has all the artwork and for the front label and the back label. And so I will change, so since it's a new lot number, I will change the lot number on the back label. I will change whatever the germination rate it shows. And then whatever year it was tested on, that's when I put down what year we can sell it for. And then I save that in a PDF file, and then I print off however many labels we need. Once that's done, I run these over to Shauna. We're not even like 5 minutes away from each other. So I take them over to her. And then what she does, and me too, is we'll put all the front labels on the envelopes. And then we put the seeds like in a bowl, and then we use whatever measurement, and we just scoop them up and put it in the envelope. And then we take a glue stick and we seal the back flap. And especially like with lettuce and carrots and the smaller seeds, um, we make sure that it's glued real good because we don't want seeds escaping, you know. And then we put the back label on just to help seal it even more.
Hmm.
And things like most of our herbs, so like basil, thyme, stuff like that, they come in little Ziploc baggies. My husband calls them dime bags. But so we put those inside of those Ziploc baggies because the seeds are just so small, they would get stuck down in the envelope. And so what that does is that adds a step. So instead of just putting the seeds in the envelope, we put them in that little Ziploc, seal it up, and then put that little Ziploc into the envelope, and we glue stick and then put the back on. And then so when a customer orders, I'll get the order on the computer, and then I print off a packaging slip, and then I take that to my store, which is just shelves that's got the bins with all the seed packets in it, and I will compile the list, and I put them in this right here, and then I double check after I've compiled the order together. I go through and I double check that I've got, you know, two of whatever they ordered, or one of, you know, whatever number it is that they ordered. And then I go ahead and I fold their invoice in half, and then I package it depending on the size of the order. Sometimes I just use a little cardboard sleeve to put it in. That way it's more rigid, because when it goes through the mail, it goes through machines, and I don't want the seeds to get crushed or damaged or anything. So we put them in a cardboard like sleeve, and then I put them inside of a bubble mailer. And then on the sides at the top of the bubble mailer, there's always, you know, where air and moisture and stuff can get through. So I tape that up.
Mm.
And then I, you know, do the shipping, I weigh it and everything like that, print off the label, and then I will get a hold, if I need to put orders down at the bottom of our driveway in the box for our mail lady, I just send her a message and say, hey, I've got stuff for you to pick up in the morning. And then she comes and picks it up and ships it off. Otherwise, we just put it in our mailbox.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. It's kind of
Yeah.
like the journey of a seed. That's
Yep.
really fun. So are you growing any of these crops at your place, or are you getting everything from distributors?
I'm getting everything from distributors, but we are growing some of the seed ourselves just for the produce.
Hmm.
And then so Shauna, she also, same thing, she grows our seeds. There's a guy that she cleans for over in Tenzin, and we provide him with seeds. He's an older guy, and he reminds me a lot of my grandpa, and so I just give him seeds. And so he grows our seeds. And then Terry, who is a very dear friend of ours, we call her the garden guru. She has been growing Heirlooms Evermore seeds for years, like before Shauna and I were even in the picture.
Hmm.
And she lives in St. Mary's. Well, even though we're only like half an hour from her, she has a different microclimate than we do. And even Shauna has a different microclimate than I do, because I'm just over 3,000 feet in elevation. She's lower than that, and she's by a creek. And so all of our seeds, even though we've got different microclimates, they grow very well. And Terry, she last year she got huge Nantes carrots from us. And she said they're not grainy at all. They're not stringy. They are so sweet. She said it's the best carrot she's ever had.
Mm.
And yeah, so we all grow our seeds for, you know, for feeding our families and whatnot. But as far as like harvesting them ourselves, we don't. You can. So the difference between an heirloom seed and just a seed that you like get at Walmart or Home Depot is the ones at like Walmart, Home Depot, dollar store. They've all been genetically modified. And so you won't grow the same produce every year. It's not the exact same corn that you would get every year or carrot or whatever. An heirloom seed it's a generational thing. So like say your great 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 grandmother grew the Nantes carrots from this seed, because it's an heirloom, that means that it was harvested from that carrot and then planted the next year. So you're still getting the same carrot every single year. It hasn't been modified. And when you get stuff from the big box stores that are, seeds from them, and they're not heirloom, it is harder to save the seeds and get produce from them. Just because it's not how the seed is able to, to produce a seed for the next year.
Right.
They just don't grow good. And it just, every single time you grow a seed from that plant, say I get seeds from Home Depot and I plant, I don't know, a beet. And then I harvest the seeds from that beet and I plant another one the next year. It could be completely deformed if it even comes up. The taste could be completely different. It just changes
Right.
because the seed itself has been modified.
Right. So they're hybridizing these seeds,
Mm-hmm.
and when you get a hybrid seed, you're not going to get something that's true the following year.
Yeah.
My Gene does some. We have some propagation licensing, and so understanding kind of how that works is important because and propagating is different than getting from seeds for sure. But he's been we have a couple of varieties that are unique to here because and I couldn't tell you anything about it, but he's using the seeds and he's pollinating certain plants together to create a new variety. But we couldn't take the seed from, excuse me, from the new variety that he's made and create that same plant, but we can take a cutting from it and make a clone.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot to understand. There's a lot to understand about seed saving anyway, because you also have to keep them separate. You can't have, say, four different tomato varieties in your greenhouse, and even if they're all heirloom, if you've got bees pollinating back and forth, then you're actually not going to, when you save the seeds from those tomatoes, you're not going to necessarily get the same as the mother plant. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot to seed saving, but I think it's fascinating that we can create a seed that then we can pass down, excuse me, for generations. And
Mm-hmm.
what a huge I mean, it feels like an honor thing. Like what a wonderful process to be able to pass down these seeds that, especially when you're planting and replanting in your same area year after year, it's becoming more and more. That seed itself is becoming more and more acclimated to your spot, and so you're just creating a plant that's even more viable in your
Mm-hmm.
climate, which is it's just all of that's just incredible to me. So
Yeah.
I think that's really fun.
Yeah.
So Mary, the when you and I had talked before, one of the things that you brought up and that you wanted to talk about in the podcast, and I definitely want to touch on that before we finish up. You had talked about just like this homestead lifestyle in general, and how it's kind of seasonal, and we need to be wise in how much we're doing and what we're doing and how we're going about it. And I don't remember what all you said in the email, but I remember it really resonated with me. And my co-host Kelly was here last week, or yeah, and she said she'd seen a meme that said something to the effect of, don't worry, it's okay, it's just August. And I remember I hadn't told her this, but I had been telling Jean, I was like, I just hate August. Like, I want to enjoy August. It's a fabulous summer month, but there is more to do than is humanly possible to do.
Mm-hmm.
And with food preservation, and we have the you pick farms, so we're having customers, and I'm trying to keep all the customer facing stuff up. And then there's life, and we
Mm-hmm.
also have a magazine, and that goes to press the first week in September. And there's just a lot in August. And but I thought it was interesting that she said that, because I kind of was maybe feeling a little sorry for myself. um but it seems like everyone's August is kind of like that.
Hmm.
And one thing to remember, especially for Alaskans, we have maybe 6 weeks to put up any food that we're putting up for the year. We have about 6 weeks to do it. So
Hmm.
so it is all crammed, and of course it's going to be busy, because you've got 52 weeks worth of food that you're trying to preserve, grow and preserve and do all the things with. And that all kind of comes to a head in that last 6 weeks. But
Hmm.
but I would just love to hear your take, now that I've kind of shared our world a little bit.
Hmm.
Like, what even made you bring that up in the email? Like where were you in life that you were like, man, we got to be careful what all we're taking on as homesteaders, because it can be a lot. It can be too much if you're not careful.
Yeah. So this year has been a really crazy year. My husband's parents, they retired and they've moved on the property. We have been busy finishing their place, getting skirting on. We just did their stairs and a landing for them and getting them ready for winter, getting a wood shed, making sure they've got plenty of wood, plus trying to get all of our stuff ready for winter. And, with the garden and everything, and trying to get ready to start canning everything, and with the two kids and homeschooling. And then we found out that we were pregnant, surprising, at 44, I'm like, I thought I was done. I'm not, ready for another. And so in that mindset, I was feeling overwhelmed, and like there was so much to think about that needed to be done, especially before our vacation in September. And it's like, well, later this month. And so I had to remind myself that you just take it one thing at a time. Don't look at all the things that need to be done. Focus on one thing, because there's always going to be tons of things to have to do. And you're always going to feel overwhelmed if you look at it as a whole.
Mhm.
But if you just focus on the one task and be like, okay, I've got to do this task, we'll get through this task, and then I'll worry about the other tasks. That really seems to help. And also not putting on yourself expectations of trying to do everything, asking for help from like the in laws or my husband or even my teenager and my daughter, you know, getting them more involved so it takes some off of my plate. It really helps with that stress and that overwhelming feeling. And also just setting goals, be like, okay, this week, if I can just get A and B done, I can feel accomplished, you know, and keeping it a small list and not be like, oh, well, I have to get A, B, C, D, E done by the end of the week. And you only get two of them done because, you know, something unexpected happens and you don't have the time to, make sure that you get all those done. And then you feel like you failed because you put too much on yourself. And so it's just taking a little bit at a time, worrying about the little things, that you can control, and then going from there.
It's so true. There's a poem, and I don't remember hardly anything about it, but I remember it from 20 some years ago when I first started homeschooling my older kids. And it was just called "Do the Next Thing." And I remember the premise of it is, um, just do what's next. Whatever is the most important thing that you need to do next, just do it. But you made me think of something. Um, Gene's our farmer. He grows everything, and he has the ability to go out. He goes out to, like, he's been planting the new orchard, and he'll go out there and be out there for 3 or 4 hours and be totally devoted to planting the new orchard. And he is ultra, ultra, ultra productive. And I find myself comparing myself to him sometimes. And I was getting kind of down on myself. And then because I, would have a to-do list, and at the end of the day I'm exhausted, but nothing on my to-do list really got all done.
Hmm.
And he pointed out, he said, Tandy, your life is just different than mine. It's structured different. He can go
Right.
out to the orchard and he just works and he's able to get those things done. Because I'm the customer service person for the business. I'm the homeschool mom. I'm the meal planner. I take care of the house, and all that. And he helps with the house tremendously. Don't get me wrong, but I don't have that ability. So I might go in to the laundry room to start a load of laundry. And then I remember, because the freezer's in there, I might go, oh, gosh, I should get something out for dinner. So I grab something out for dinner and I put it in the kitchen, and I got to grab out a plate to put the, meat on to thaw. And then I realize, gosh, the dishes need to be put away. So then you put the dishes away, and you know how it is. It's just this
Yeah.
on and on thing. And then suddenly at 6 o'clock, when you're sitting down for dinner and you go, oh, I never started that load of laundry.
Yep.
and
I hear
and
you.
and that's just how it is. And so but I love the idea of the poem, because but letting it ebb and flow. So I
Hmm.
might have all these things on my to-do list, but there's also things that I'm not writing down that have to be done. And
Hmm.
all my whole job is just to put my foot forward, spend the day doing what needs to be done, consulting that to-do list, because some things are non-negotiables. If I have a podcast recording scheduled or something, it doesn't matter what else is going on. At 10:30, I get on the my phone, and or on my computer usually, and we're
Hmm.
recording this podcast. And but then the rest of the day just entails things like, oh gosh, I forgot to feed the sourdough, and whatever it
Yeah.
is. And but being realistic about, I think, the stuff that's not on your to-do list that still
Hmm.
needs to be done. So
Yeah.
I tend to put the big rocks on my to-do list, but I'm not putting stuff like, shoot, we're going to an event and we need to have these specific clothes clean. And
Hmm.
I might not have, or just everyday laundry. And I certainly don't have feeding the sourdough on my list, because I do it every morning. It's just something that we just do. And so I just really appreciate your caution of, what can you actually do in a day.
Hmm.
And keeping it very, very real,
Yeah.
and not taking on too many projects. But also,
Hmm.
I think there's a wisdom in understanding this is seasonal, and some seasons are just gonna take a lot out of you.
Yep.
And
Hmm.
that's okay too, because it's good to dig in. It's really good to do that extra, and it sure makes you appreciate that morning when you're finally caught up and you
Hmm.
can just enjoy your cup of tea. And
Yep.
the world isn't going to catch on fire and fall apart if you're not rushing to the next thing.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of sayings that we use when we're in the busy seasons, and it is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
And then also, when we're all caught up in the busy season, we have so much to do, and it seems like we never have time to, like you said, sit down and enjoy a cup of tea or whatever, is just remembering this too shall pass.
Yeah.
We're in this season right now. The slow season is coming, and then I can take a deep breath and relax and go ahead and do some things that I enjoy and reflect on this busy season that we just had, you
Yeah.
know, because we have two different busy seasons in our household. So we have the summer busy season, which is my husband's work busy season because he drives mixer. And so he's working long hours. Plus, we're trying to get projects done around the house because the house is not finished. And, we've got firewood that we've got to get put up. Luckily, we have a teenager now that does that. um so there's that busy season where we're doing projects and everything. Well, then in the winter, when his work slows down and he's not working, then it becomes my busy season because we have a little bit of a busy season September, October, and then we'll have a little uptick in December, but usually February, March, and April, and sometimes May, we're slammed.
Hmm.
And like this last year or this last spring, Azure was ordering every single week. And so I was having orders that I was compiling to get ready to send to Azure. And then I was also needing to print things off to get to Shauna so then she could restock. So I wasn't running out for our regular customers. And so during that season, I'm working as soon as I get up in the morning, I'll scarf down some breakfast and then I'm here in the office and I'll stop for lunch, which my husband ends up taking care of that, and then dinner, and then I'm back in here until it's bedtime. And so it's kind of helped with us having the two different busy seasons to just remember, this too shall pass. We're just in this busy season now. In a month or two, it'll slow down and we can breathe and regroup and collect ourselves and get ready to do the next busy season.
That's right.
Because
That's right. It's
well, and there is so many working cogs that go with the seed company
yeah.
and getting things out for the customers and making sure I've got supplies. Because there's also things like I have to make sure that I've got enough supplies and that I've got to calculate, okay, so it takes this long for, say, my envelopes to get in. I have to take that into account when I order. So I got to make sure I order early enough. But then you also have to make sure that there's money in the bank to cover that. And so there is just so many working cogs to this whole thing. And it can get stressful at times, especially if something goes wrong, like, see, I can't get my hands on a seed that we're out of. I hate
Yeah.
not being able to have that available for our customers. Um, thank the Lord, I have not run out yet because I try to make sure that I buy ahead. But
Yeah.
there's been a couple of close calls where it looked like, am I going to be able to get the seed? We're almost out. And, we do end up being able to. But yeah, it's just keeping in the mindset that we'll get through it,
Yep.
you know?
And like you said, you're taking it seriously because these people are planting their green beans to put on their shelf or to freeze for their family for the winter. So
Mm-hmm.
you take it seriously. It's not like, a shirt because, they can go get a shirt elsewhere. And they
Right.
can probably go get seeds elsewhere too,
Mm-hmm.
but you want to make sure that you're the one able to provide when a customer comes onto your site. This has been really fun. I've really enjoyed visiting with you.
Oh,
Tell
thank you.
me, one thing I just want to say a caveat here because I know that you're based in Idaho. You sent me most of the seeds that you have on your website are ones that we use anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so there are definitely you have a bunch of Alaska friendly varieties. Um, but tell me, and I have some of your seeds. I was going to do a second planting this summer, and here we are now. It's September. It's too late. But I think what I'm going to do with them actually is I'm going to plant some in my. I want to plant some radishes and stuff in my greenhouse super early before
Mm-hmm.
anything else can go out there. I want to see how they do. I'm curious. I've seen where people do that, where they'll because your greenhouse is a little bit protected, and so I'm kind of excited to have them already on hand and try them a little early, and then of course some will go out in my garden next year too. But tell me how we can get a hold of you. How can we find you? Are you on Facebook? Do we just go directly to your website? How are we finding you to order seeds?
So you can go to heirloomsevermore.com, and that is our website. We are on Facebook and Instagram. And so with Facebook and Instagram, anytime I get ready to do a sale or there's exciting news happening, that's where I will announce. So I try to, like around Christmas time, I try to have a little bit of a sale because husbands are always saying, "Oh, it's so hard to shop for my wife." Well, if she's a gardener, you can always get her seeds,
Yep.
and so I try to do little sales like that. Last year I did one for Labor Day, and time just got away from me this year. I completely forgot to do one for Labor Day. But just things like that get announced on the Facebook page. And like when we ended up taking over Heirlooms, Tom and Sarah had put a thing on there introducing us and telling about the change. And then also like for the Modern Homesteading Conference, since we're a sponsor and a vendor, I'll do updates of, like when the dates are and if we're in the same spot or not. And this year, I actually did a little thing of if you see this post and you come to the conference, say something and you get, I think I did like 10% off or something like that.
Oh, fun.
And so, yeah, but the best place to actually shop for our seeds is just heirloomsevermore.com. Or if you'd rather, you can always go ahead and get our seeds through Azure Standard.
Huh?
Um, I know there's a lot of people that do still shop through Azure for our seeds, but on the back of every packet, or sorry, on the front at the bottom of every packet is our website. And then there is a contact me form. So if anybody wants to send out an email to, ask a question or whatever, they can fill out that contact form on our website. And then it goes to the email and it dings on my phone. And so I'm usually able to respond quite quickly.
Great. That's awesome. This has been so fun. It was fun kind of getting behind the scenes of what it looks like to have the the different heirloom seeds and stuff, but it
Mhm.
was also fun to talk a little bit about just the realities of living this homestead lifestyle, and as rewarding as it is, it's not always easy. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time so much.
Yeah, not a problem.